Hi, I'm Dan with Family White TV, and my wife got me this new shirt. You like it? Hope so. So this is my projector buying guide, and it's kind of a buying guide for me, but I'm kind of sharing with you the projectors that I've been looking at in the past year that I think would make a great, maybe not quite ultimate home theater projector, but a really darn good home theater projector. Now, one thing I do need to mention in this video is I've only seen a couple of these projectors in person and none of them in my actual theater. I'm doing this video from the perspective of someone who's done a lot of research but doesn't have the resources to actually buy all the projectors, put them all in his room, and then choose the best one. These are ones based on all the reading I've done, the reviews I've read, all the information I've collected, what I would put on my short list as if I would have to pick one of these projectors, which one I would pick. So before I go through the specific projectors, I want to tell you a little bit about my theater and what requirements I'm looking for my theater. So my theater is a darker room. I have complete light control in here, black ceiling, black walls, black surround. And so I want a projector that's going to have really good black levels. What good black levels are is how black the projector can display a picture while it's still on, how dark the darkest elements in a picture can be. Now, if you have a theater that you can't have dark walls, maybe you're in a rental house or something like that, you have white walls and a white ceiling, then the deepest blacks aren't going to be as important for you and you'll want a projector that's going to have higher brightness. But me, I want a projector that has deep blacks. Now, another big requirement I want for my home theater projector is it needs to have lens shift and enough zoom so that I can change the size of my screen, and ideally it will have lens memory. Why do I need that? Well, because this screen, right now it's in a 16:9 mode. However, if I'm watching Lord of the Rings like this, it's going to look like this. I don't want it to look like that. I want it to look like this. You see, standard television is in this 16:9 format, which is a narrower format, whereas movies are in a larger format. And I don't think that an epic movie like Lord of the Rings, or any movie for that matter, should be presented in a format smaller than what television provides. So instead of having black bars on the top and bottom of the picture, I have what's called a constant image height screen so that I can zoom the projector out and fill the entire screen with the actual movie's image. Now, to be sure, using lens shift and zoom is not the ideal way to deal with a constant image height screen. Ideally, you would want an anamorphic lens. However, those are outside my price range. So for me, using the zoom and lens shift method is good enough, and especially with a 4K projector. And speaking of 4K, 4K is another one of my requirements. Here, I'm way off on the edge of the screen, so I'm going to close down to 16:9 again. Woo! There we go. So the other thing I want in a projector is 4K. My current projector is a 1080p projector, which is 1920x1080. Well, I would prefer to have a 4K projector, which is 4096 by 3800 something. That right there. And so that is an upgrade that I am looking for. And we're going to talk a little bit more about resolutions, but for my seating distance, which is about 9 feet away from a 10-foot wide screen when it's in the full 2.35:1 format, 4K is going to have some benefit for me. It'll be a visible benefit. I'll get into a little bit more about that later. Now, a fourth thing that I would like to have with a projector is a solid-state light engine. That is a LED or laser light engine. Now, these are becoming more commonplace these days, but the ones that are bright enough to put out a good image for serious home theater, they're still a bit pricey. There are some affordable ones, but there are trade-offs with the solid-state light engine. The advantages of a solid-state light engine is they generally last about 20,000 hours. Also, they have a much more controlled aging effect. What aging is as a light engine ages, it's going to become a little bit dimmer over time. Well, the solid-state light engines don't dim as much over time, whereas lamp-based projectors are going to have significant dimming, possibly even within the first 500 hours of the lamp's life. Lamps can last around 4,000 or 5,000 hours, but they do go out. And as a matter of fact, about a week ago, I actually had a lamp explode for the first time within my projector. Fortunately, it was within the lamp housing, and I kept my old projector lamp, so I was able to swap it out and have it back up and running, and the projector works just fine. But it did sound like a little firecracker going off inside my theater. But with solid-state light engines, you don't have that issue. Whereas with lamp-based projectors, you have the dimming over time, possibly within the first couple hundred hours of the lamp's life. Lamps tend to be expensive for the projectors I'm looking at about $400 a pop for projector lamps. And because of the dimming effect, as your lamp ages, your projector's not going to quite have that pop that it once did. Until, of course, you buy a new lamp, then it's almost like you have a new projector, until the projector has about 500 to 1,000 hours on it and your image starts to dim over time. Now, really, you don't tend to notice the dimming because it happens so slowly, but there will come a point where it's like, man, this image is really dim. You buy a new lamp, put it in, and wow, this is a lot brighter now. But you have that cycle of buying projector lamps, and I just don't want to have to deal with that. Also, a lot of people are saying that solid-state light engines, they do seem to be brighter. I have some theories behind that. I won't go into that here. But also, people are saying the image seems more stable. I have no idea what they mean when they say the image looks more stable, because I haven't seen a decent laser LED projector yet. So anecdotal evidence, solid-state light engines have a picture that seems more stable, whatever that means. Now, the budget for projectors I'm looking at is around $5,000. I can go maybe a little higher, a little lower, but that's kind of my target there. So $10,000 is right out. And a $1,000 projector, well, it's really bare bone. It doesn't really have the features I'm looking for in a projector. Okay, so let's get into the projectors on my short list. I'm hoping to be able to buy in the first half of next year if I get promoted. If I don't get promoted, I'm going to be waiting longer. But hopefully I'll be able to buy within the first half of next year. And the projectors that are currently on my short list begins with the JVC NX7. This is also known as the RS2000. The only difference between the NX7 and the RS2000 is the supply chain you buy it through. One of them is purchased through home theater integrators, home theater installers. The other one is purchased directly from a box store like Best Buy, and you take it home and install it yourself. Now, the JVC NX7 has 3 of the 4 things I'm looking for. It has industry-leading black levels. It has the motorized lens shift and zoom and lens memory. And it is a true 4K projector. The panel's resolution is actually 4K. The one thing it doesn't have is it doesn't have a solid-state light engine. It is a lamp-based projector. Now, the price of this projector, the MSRP is $9,000, so that's maybe a little bit over my budget. I was hoping for $5,000. Might be able to go plus or minus a little bit, but that's where it's at right now. Hopefully next year it'll be a little cheaper, or maybe some newer things might have come out by then. But this projector is really at the top of my list for projectors that are in my price range. Now, another one I'm considering is the JVC NX5 or RS1000. This one has an MSRP of $6,000, but I've also seen it for around $5,000-ish online. Now, the difference between the NX5 and NX7, the NX5 still has the motorized lens shift, zoom, and lens memory. It has good black levels, but not as good as the NX7. It also has good contrast. So the difference is here by the numbers. The NX5 has a 40,000 to 1 native contrast, whereas the NX7 has 80,000 to 1 native contrast. And from videos I've seen where people have actually done in-person comparisons, the NX7 does look visibly better than the NX5. Now, if the price difference is $3,000 as indicated by the MSRP, it might be a hard sell, but if you can get it for a good street price that's only maybe $1,000 above what the NX5 is offering, then the NX7 would probably be a good projector to purchase. So the next projector down from the list from the NX5, there is a BenQ HT9060 projector. This projector is interesting in that it is a solid-state light engine. It's a 4K projector, but it's not true 4K. It uses a DLP chip in it. It's higher resolution than 1080p. I don't know the resolution off the top of my head. There it is. And it uses pixel shifting to achieve 4K. Now, people who've seen this projector stacked up against true 4K projectors say that this projector actually in some cases can look better than native 4K projectors. The reason being, this projector by all accounts has a really good lens that is razor sharp all the way from edge to edge. Also, since it is a DLP projector, it is a single chip DLP projector. And so, whereas with the JVC and Sony true 4K projectors that have 3 panels inside them, the BenQ projector just has the one DLP chip. The reason this can look sharper is because the true 4K projectors that are based off LCOS technology, like the JVC projectors, LCOS is liquid crystal on silicon, that uses 3 panels inside it, one for red, one for green, one for blue. Now the projector does let you align the panels, but you'd have to get really lucky to have a projector where you can get the panels aligned absolutely perfectly. And so whereas you might have the panels aligned with perfect convergence in the centers, a lot of times off on the sides they're not going to be as perfectly aligned. Now they do have zone convergence, but that causes some other issues. It's a little bit more complex I won't get into. But the main point is it has 3 panels and they have to be perfectly aligned to have a perfect image, and that is very rarely the case. However, with a DLP projector that uses a single chip, the chip is always aligned because it's the same chip. And so when you pair the DLP device that's inside this BenQ projector with a really good lens, you can get a razor sharp picture, sharp enough to cut yourself on. Hyperbole, exaggerated statements or claims not meant to be taken literally. Now another advantage of this projector is it is a high brightness LED light engine. It's rated at 2200 lumens, whereas the JVC NX7 is rated at 1900 lumens and the NX5 is rated at 1800 lumens. So it's going to be a brighter projector. Now there's a couple key disadvantages for the BenQ projector. One is that it does have lens shift and lens zoom, but it does not have motorized lens memory, and that is a feature that is surprising to not have on a projector that has an MSRP of $9,000. Another disadvantage of the BenQ projector is that from the reviews I've read, the black floor is not that great. When it displays a black screen, although it does have internal dimming, it doesn't get anywhere near what the JVC can do for absolute black level. And then there's the price. As I said, the MSRP is $9,000. Now I haven't seen it much cheaper than that online. However, if you go to BenQ Direct, their previous model, the 9050, you can get for $2,500 from BenQ Direct. So the 9060 could be an interesting projector if a refurbished model comes up, or maybe if they come out with a new model, or maybe if you call around, you might actually be able to find a pretty good discount, maybe find that projector for around maybe $6,000-ish. I'm not sure, I haven't called around. But those two disadvantages really put it towards the bottom of the short list for me. Now the last 2 projectors on my short list is the Epson 6050UB and 5050UB. Now these 2 projectors are LCD projectors, and they are not true 4K projectors, they are faux K. Basically they use pixel shifting to create a simulated 4K image on a screen. Now by a lot of accounts, when you're watching movies, the difference is very subtle and hard to notice between true 4K and faux K. But I have also seen accounts that say that when you're gaming, that it makes a much bigger difference between true 4K and fake 4K. So that's a trade-off there. Now these projectors do have very good black levels, but they are not as good as the JVC projectors. In fact, just the other day I happened to be at a Best Buy where they had both the 6050UB and the JVC NX5 on display, and I was able to get a demo of both of them side by side. Well, actually not side by side, one after the other, but it was on the same screen, same room, same movie, same scene, all that stuff. Now the NX5 did look like it had more pop and better black levels than the Epson projector. So you are trading something off for the $1,000 you would save over the NX5. Now the Epson projector does have lens memory, lens shift, lens zoom. It's all motorized, so you can just press a button and it'll do it all for you, just like the NX5 and NX7. And these are both lamp-based projectors, so there's still the lamp issue to deal with. Now the prices of these projectors is the 5050UB is $2,700 and the 6050 is $4,000. The differences between these 2 projectors is very minor. The 5050UB only comes in a white case, whereas the 6050 is in a black case. The 6050 also comes with a longer warranty, an extra lamp, and a ceiling mount. And another difference is the 6050 has a little bit better contrast than the 5050. Now I haven't been able to see if this is because there's actually a hardware difference in lenses, but more likely what may be going on is the Epson 6050 has cherry-picked parts that in quality assurance testing were found to be just a little bit better, and so they made it into the 6050, whereas the parts which were still good but not perfect made it into the 5050. That's my guess. I'm not saying that's true. There might be actual hardware difference, but the advertised contrast ratio difference between the two is relatively minor. So if budget is a factor, a 50/50 UB would be a very good projector. Not as good as the NX5, but if you can't afford the NX5, then the couple $1,000s you'd save by getting a 50/50 could very well make the difference for you. Now, another projector that I haven't mentioned that I'm sure I would probably get some comments on is, hey, why don't you consider the Sony VPL VW295 ES projector? Well, that projector is a true 4K projector and it costs $5,000. However, while it does have motorized zoom and lens shift, it does not have lens memory for some odd reason. And so the JVC NX5 does have lens memory, and so for the same price you're getting more features with the JVC. Now some people might prefer the Sony's picture, but by all accounts the JVC still has a little bit better black levels than the Sony projectors. Not to say Sony black levels are crap, because they're not, but the JVC is just a little bit better, and black levels is an important feature for me. Now the next Sony projector model up that does have lens memory is the VPL VW695 ES. But that one is selling for more than the JVC NX7, so might as well just stick with the NX7 because it is going to have a little bit better black level, has all the same features, and it costs a little bit less. Now, for the sake of completeness, since I talked about the JVC NX5 and NX7, there is a JVC NX9 out there, and that has an MSRP of $18,000. Way out of my budget. But what does the NX9 get you for the extra price? Well, it does have 2,200 lumens, whereas the NX7 and NX5 have a little bit less. It has a little bit better contrast than NX7, and it also has a better lens. Oh, and it's 8K. Oh my gosh, 8K, look at that. Look how big that number is. I mean, it's an 8. Okay, back to Realville here. It is a 8K pixel shifted image, so it's kind of faux 8K. It's not native 8K. Now you may have seen this chart, maybe not, but this is a chart which basically shows you at what seating distance you're going to notice the difference between 720p, 1080p, and 4K. Now for my screen, when it's in 2.35:1 mode, it is a 130-inch screen, and my seating distance is 9 feet away. So I'm almost to the point where I will get the full benefit of stepping up to a 4K projector. However, if we extrapolate this chart out, I would barely begin to notice the difference of 8K, if at all, unless I move my seat a lot closer to the screen. Now, some people are different. Maybe you have a room where you want to have a 150, 160, 180-inch image and you want to sit 10 feet away from it. And hey, you probably would notice a benefit from stepping up to something like 8K. From what I've read of people who have seen the NX9 in action, they say that there is a subtle benefit when the 8K image enhancement of the NX9 is turned on. So if you can afford it, then the NX9 would probably be one of the best projectors that you can get right now. Okay, so if we just throw the budget out the window and say, all right, what's the one projector that if you could have any projector out there you would want to have? Well, that would probably be the JVC 4500K. That one does tick off all the boxes for me. It is a true 4K projector. It has lens shift, lens zoom, lens memory. It's all motorized. It has really good black levels, and it's a solid state light engine. But currently, yeah, it's out of my price range. I think Sony also does have a model. It's $18,000, still way out of my price range. So we're going to have to wait a few more years for things to come down in price enough for that to even begin to possibly be a reality. Okay, so let's say you say, all right, just shut up and pick one already. If you had to pick one, which one would it be? You had to pick it today. Well, I would pick the NX5. It ticks off most of the boxes for me. It has a really good black level, really good contrast. It has the motorized lens zoom, lens shift, lens memory, and it is true 4K. The only drawback is it doesn't have a solid state light engine, but life is full of compromises. So there it is. There's the projectors that are on my short list. Now, will I do a video for $1,000 projectors that I might want? Well, those projectors aren't really interesting me right now, so I haven't really done a lot of research, so I don't really think it'd be a benefit of you if I were to do a video based on $1,000 projectors because, well, I've not done thorough research on those. But you can go to some sites that I'm not affiliated with. There's one called ProjectorCentral.com. They maintain a top 10 list of projectors in various different categories, and that'd be a good resource to go to if you're looking for something under this price range. So as I sign off here, here's some other videos that you might be interested from around my channel. There's a video on choosing a projector that has more in-depth information, and there's videos about screens and other random videos that the YouTube algorithm thinks that you might like. So if this was helpful for you, you can hit that like button down there, and maybe even subscribe. There's bells and whistles and stuff also. Thanks for watching, and I hope that this was helpful for you.